The murals on Headon's floor might be hiding a lot more than I had thought. Of course, I knew a couple of fun facts about these murals, a couple of theories, and I'd seen a lot of posts discussing this topic. But dude, these murals are so interesting because we actually see a lot more of them than I had initially thought. Like rereading that chapter and reading all these people's posts and theories on these wall paintings, there's actually a lot of them, and also they're super detailed. Like, I'm shocked that like SIU from episode 1 was like, I'm gonna just paint these walls in all these different details. It's so cool. And so today we're gonna break down every single mural and see what SIU might have been thinking. So the first painting is actually 3 different figures. We have a man with a crown with a sword floating above his head. In the middle, we have this creature with a horn, some kind of dragon-like or reptilian humanoid. And then on the right, we have some kind of insect creature with wings. These 3, I've seen theorized, could represent the 3 lords. We know the 3 lords are kind of like the true rulers of the tower. They haven't been mentioned in the story proper, so it's one of those things that I think actually could get retconned. But as far as we know, these 3 lords do exist: Malik PGR, Ju-Chun, and Flux. Malik PGR is one of the greatest warriors that ever existed in the tower. He is a native to the tower that Jihad himself couldn't take lightly according to the wiki, and he's a beast. He's one of the 3 lords, he could take on any position, and he had this charisma that was like very different from all the other people that were his peers. Like, he stood out even amongst his peers. And I think he could be represented by this middle painting. Ju-Chun is a member of the Ari family, very smart dude, drinking buddies with Yurik. He's very interesting himself as well. I feel like if he's gonna be one of these 3, he'd be the one on the left, but the thing about him is that he's from the Ari family, and the Ari family uses needles and not swords. So that to me is a bit strange. And then the one on the right could be Flux. We know he is an artificial creation by Mixeth and by the workshop, but from my understanding, he's supposed to be a humanoid. So after thinking all that through, I don't think these are the 3 lords, unless they're representing them and it's not supposed to be taken super literally. I've also seen some people say maybe the one on the left is Jihad, but Jihad doesn't use a sword, he uses a needle. Also, it just doesn't visibly look like Jihad, but again, maybe that doesn't necessarily matter. The one in the middle, people have said could be like Rak or the Wraithrazor species, or maybe like the Ancients or whatever, and that to me is much more likely because we've actually seen other pictures of Rak's ancestor, you know, the native one descendants and all this stuff. So I do think that could be related in some way. And the one on the right, this could be a reference to Baam being like, you know, the floral butterfly piercing technique, or maybe has to do with Baam like going through metamorphosis, growing literal wings, you know, and having like the 2 demons inside of him, the Thrissas. It could be in relation to that. Aside from that, though, I really have no idea what that thing is. Now, the one on the left could actually be a member of the REA family. It definitely seems to represent it much more than the Ari family. It's a genuine sword, it's not a needle, it has a gemstone inside of it, and the person is wearing a crown. And we know that White uses a sword kind of like that, wears a crown, but of course doesn't really look like that. So it could just be a representation of either REA Han or maybe White. This next one is much more vague. It's another set of 3 here, and I can't really tell what the left one is. It just looks kind of like something flowing, maybe hair, I'm not really sure. But the one in the middle clearly is some kind of Shinwei, maybe even representing a guardian or an administrator, whatever you want to call it. It definitely is some kind of fish-like, snake-like creature. And it doesn't represent anything we've seen in Tower of God, which tells me it's maybe representing the father of the the Guardians. Oh, there's so many terms. The father of the Guardians, the father of the administrators, something like that perhaps, the first one. I don't know, because it definitely stands out. It doesn't really look like any of the administrators we've seen before, but at the same time, I can't imagine it's anything else. And the one on the right, I've seen some people say it's Yurik Mazzino. You know, he is actually doing a very similar pose to something that Yurik does, and you know, his body type, I guess, kind of represents Yurik. I don't know, though. I don't think it is. Unless, again, it's like, okay, it's just a representation. It's not supposed to look exact, but it just looks very different, right? Like, Yurik doesn't really... I mean, maybe. Again, I can kind of see it, but at the same time, if that is Yurik, they didn't do a great job at really showing what he looks like. It could just be like maybe the people in the tower, the original native ones in the tower, not the native one, not that native one. Like the first people, you know what I mean? Like the actual natives of the tower. Maybe it's representing them. We know that Cha is the descendant of the first man, which has always struck me as strange. I want to make a video on that because it insinuates that there was a first people, and maybe this is representing that first people, right? Maybe the first people to ever exist in the tower, whether they came from inside the tower. We know that Nen's story about the plants and the machines and existing in the tower and humans came from plants. Maybe they were the first men. I don't know, but he does kind of look like Cha, like again, that body type that Yurik and Cha have, so some kind of relation there maybe. Okay, then we see this panel, and this one, it's the most perplexing to me because I don't even really have a theory. I've seen people say, oh, it's Rak. It's Rak's species, but that thing does not look anything like Rak. So again, unless we're using the excuse that it's just a representation, I don't know, dude, that looks like a fish to me. Some kind of Shinwei, Man fighting Shinwei, man fighting administrator. Someone said maybe Enryu fighting the administrator. Like, maybe, I guess, but to me it just looks like a soldier, like some kind of Roman soldier fighting a fish. So it's so hard for me to discern what it could be. I think it's just man fighting Shinwei, representing humans, Shinwei, whatever the terms you want to use, creatures and humans. I'm not sure. That's how I view it, but maybe not. I don't know. It's definitely a perplexing one. And then we see this one, and this is one that I had never seen before. It somehow completely slipped past me. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to the background apparently, but during one of Rachel's scenes in I think probably chapter 75, when we see Rachel's perspective, or 76 maybe, we see in the background here 3 murals, 3 paintings. And these murals are so interesting because this tells us SIU could have been planning a lot more than we had thought. Like obviously he's a genius storyteller, but if he actually had this figured out way back in season 1, color me impressed. Because on the left we see a woman, and she looks to be possibly pregnant. I don't really want to say she is for sure, but it just, I don't know. I feel like it looks like a woman who could be pregnant, and it would make sense because in the next panel, we see a woman carrying a child on her back. That looks like a child and it looks like a woman. It could be the same woman, right? A woman who gave birth and is doing something with this child, carrying this child up the tower, or maybe escaping, because on the right panel here, we see what appears to be a tower or some kind of structure or maybe a tree. I'm not really sure. That could be the tower itself. Maybe that's Arlene after escaping the tower. So yes, the woman on the left could be Arlene, and in the middle we see Arlene with Baam. Maybe that's Baam who was killed, right? We know Baam used to have long hair, and then we know Arlene kept Baam's body alive using some kind of shinsu or some way, I forget exactly, but she was able to keep Baam's body, fresh. That's such a gross topic. Baam's body didn't disintegrate. She brought Baam out of the tower. It probably took her a long time, and that way he was able to come back to life and he wasn't a zombie. So boom, Arlene and Baam, and then escaping the tower, and that's them looking at the tower. I think that's so cool, and there's nothing else that fits here. I saw someone say Rachel and Baam. That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't look anything like them unless you use that excuse. So I don't know. I think this is Arlene. I think that makes perfect sense. Then we see this one, and Headon is standing in front of what appear to be a lot of plants. This could be similar to Nen's story about the plants existing in the tower. This one's a lot more vague. It doesn't really have a lot of detail, so it just looks like a bunch of plants. So it's probably calling back to that latest chapter, which is kind of wild. I'm glad I made this video when I did, because it actually ties into it really well, plants being the oldest thing to exist in the tower along with machines for some reason. Then we get this panel. This one might not be in order, but we see it when Headon is summoning and raising the gates and preparing Baam to fight the white steel eel. We see roses or flowers or some kind of plant that looks to be like a flower, and this one to me, this has to be the Forget-Me-Not. This has to be representing Doan. And I know what you're thinking, like, wow, okay, we see flowers, so you're just assuming it's Doan. Why would Doan be on the murals? Well, we do know that Doan and all those people existed a long time ago in the tower, ancient times, you know, like 15,000 years ago or so. So we know they've existed a long time. Maybe these murals were created after that, or they predicted Doan and all that stuff. But the main thing for me is that the statue of the Forget-Me-Not, which is supposed to be like honoring Doan, it looks identical. Like, yes, you can have a statue with flowers, but like it looks almost exactly the same. And I can't think of anything else it would be referencing unless it's just representing plants. So I do think genuinely this is referencing Doan and the Forget-Me-Not. I don't know if SIU had all of this planned. I don't know if this was like he had it all written down and it's gonna be a perfect, you know, telling of the future. So obviously not all of these murals might be perfectly aligned, but still, I think a lot of these do make sense. And let me know what you think of these thoughts. Do you have other theories about what these murals might mean? Did I miss any murals as well? Maybe I'll make a part 2. I think I got them all though. I did my research trying to make sure I cover all the ones that people were talking about and the other ones as well. So let me know what you think and subscribe for more Tower of God content. And don't forget, this Friday, Towers and Gods goes live with another episode. We're saying goodbye to Artlam. This is the final episode of the short Artlam arc before we head into a huge arc in the story. It's gonna be super exciting, so don't forget to join us if you want in on the fun. And with that being said, I will see you in my next Tower of God theory video. Take care.